Chill, old man. And since I'm in two Toastmasters group, I ought to know how really well to project.
Twice as well.
See, so I don't need this thing.
Is it on?
No, I turned it off because we were getting feedback.
Yeah.
Oh, that was my thing that was giving you feedback.
That's
Those
okay.
clicks.
That's okay. If y'all cannot hear me, I need to go back to Toastmasters. All right.
We're good.
First things first, phone's on stun, because I know mine needs to be put there. And I know Patrick has an announcement for us, so Patrick, if you come up and give us that.
Patrick, are you pregnant?
No, not that kind of announcement. Pregnant with ideas. So, good morning, friends. Let's see, so we're a community-centric organization, virtual group. One thing that I'm now on the board, and I didn't know this, but when you get on the board, you pick an area of interest. Or you're assigned one. Wait a minute, I thought I was just going to meetings once a month. So I signed up for the outreach process. Now, the outreach has been done by the kind of the founding members, which means the money that comes in, they spiritually think abundance and we tithe. So a percentage of your money all along has been contributed to these tithes, but a member of the board has been making that decision. So now we're going to turn that over to you, ask for your input, and again, involvement in that. So I've got a form, it all starts with a form. So there's three things. We tithe both time, energy, and money. So the top part is just asking you to submit an organization that you think would benefit from our time, us getting involved over helping out. So that's the energy thing. The second part, or it's just vice versa, is, I just said that backwards, but you get the idea, is the money. So it's been about, I'm going to check with the founders on this. Doug has told me $500 a quarter. And so if I go back, let's see, this has a couple of examples on it. I'm going to hand this out. On financial support, contributed project warmth with folks and materials to keep people warm in the winter. We've contributed to the energy, now it's called Spire, gas service, which that money is to help needy families who can't pay their heating bills in the winter. Things like that, that's where those have gone. Labor time, Christmas stores, many of you were involved. We had so many involved this year, we sent you home. So they had a lot of people. So we're probably looking for another organization to help with. You know, they're up and going and they've got plenty of, the system is in place. We may want to find a smaller organization. We want to kind of focus locally that needs a small organization like us to kind of help and be a primary assistance. But I don't know who those are. So get this, put your name on it if you wouldn't mind. List an item, the two that come to mind. Financial, if they come to mind, you don't have to add anything, just go voluntary. Just then time and labor, an organization you know that might need our assistance and help. That's two things. And number three, if you want to get involved. It starts with a form and ends with a committee, which is helping out on this. Now, I'm not much of a meeting guy, so it would probably be a few minutes after one of these Sunday services, say, hey, who do we want to pick? We do the best we can as quickly as we can, or maybe one or two meetings at most a year where we just get together and say, let's pick where the contribution goes, because and consider the voice of the community. Okay? So I think the founding group did a good job of picking needy organizations, but now it's your time to add your thoughts. Now I'm going to hand this out just to keep it simple, but I know as a speaker sometimes if you pass out a form, everybody's reading the form and wiggling and filling it out, and so I'm a little reluctant, but I want to do that, but just tell you to sit on it or stick it in your purse. Think about it even this week, turn them in next week, and Terry's going to send out an email, and I've got a form, it's one of the interactive online ones where it's PDF. You can just download it, type in your things, save it, send it back to me. It's completely paperless, or send it back to Terry, and we can have it that way. And if you don't have any ideas, that's no problem. Others will have ideas. It's all voluntary. Okay? Let me hand this out, fold it, put it in your pocket. Don't lose or rattle it. You hear wiggling and rattling, it's like the phone. If you want to stay a little late today and actually fill it out, then you're done. And I appreciate that. Be sure to look at that last line. Volunteering to be on the committee. There, I can't quite say that. I think there's extras coming in there. Anybody got one? Got your name? Okay. Got one. Everybody got these? Okay. Roll gently. Thank you.
Jeff has an announcement as well. Jeff?
Sort of related to what Patrick has just said in the forum. I need some help finding various resources to work on and utilize for the Quadrant 1 part of SQ21. So if anybody's interested, see me afterwards.
Ta-da. Any other announcements? Okay. We light the candle for spiritual. Here we go. Our lighted candle represents the Christ-like presence in all of us. We ring the bowl for universal oneness and feel the vibration that unites us in love and peace. I'm Barbara Kelly, in case y'all don't know who I am. And I am delighted to be here with you this morning on this glorious, sunshiny day, even though it's a little brisk. It is still spring, but there are little green things coming up in my garden. So I am just tickled to death because I've already had some daffodils come up, so I'm going, yes, spring is coming. Again, if you haven't turned your phones on stun, please do so. And if you would read along with me our mission and vision statement. The mission statement: the Center for Universal Oneness is a place where those who want support on their spiritual journey may join with others for mutual encouragement, inspiration, and guidance. The center draws on those practices based in new thought and metaphysical approaches. The higher Christ consciousness provides the foundation. We strive to live in the oneness of love. Our vision statement: extending into the world faith, love, peace, and joy. Thank you. Will you come pray us in, please?
No, I won't.
All right. I'm gonna have to do that too.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am so excited because I've had an opportunity to be in Jen's presentations 2 times now, so I know the treat that you're in for. And I tried to select a prayer that would be in alignment with what I think she'll be talking about. So I chose something from our ever popular and ever famous Daily Word. And this is taken from actually April 27th, so I'm skipping ahead in life. And the title of it is New Creation. And I won't read the whole thing. I am created in the image of my Creator, and as such, I have the God-given gift of creativity within me. This power gives me the ability to imagine and create new experiences. I am free to create new thoughts, feelings, and responses to life. I transcend old ways of thinking to generate new ideas and ways of being. And having been in her talks twice, I know from my own experience that as soon as she has you try something, are you going to be doing that? Oh, so you're thinking about trying something.
You'll have to have me back for a workshop.
It bends your mind just a little bit about how your life could look differently. So suspend judgment and just enjoy, Jim.
I opted to not have the microphones because banjos can get a little rowdy. I'm very happy to be with you all today. Thank you for inviting me. I'm going to start with a song that I wrote during a very searching time in my life. I was little bit lost. I went back home to Memphis, Tennessee for a week a couple summers ago, just to kind of clear my head and be in a familiar place. And I was sitting on the front porch and I was kind of working, just picking around, and I decided to take a walk. It was a late summer afternoon. My dad had this bonfire burning, and smoke was filling up these shafts of sunlight. It was kind of wonderful. And I was just walking down the driveway with woods on either side and heard this rustling of leaves, and I looked down and there's this giant brown snake right at my feet on the driveway. And I stopped, and I had my banjo just like this with me. I walk with my banjo sometimes. And I stopped, the snake stopped, and neither of us was moving, and I just kind of nervously started picking, and this song was born in that moment, and we were together like that probably for 5 minutes, and so I always think of that snake when I play this song. I feel like he kind of gave it to me.
Are you getting him royalties?
Yeah, I didn't get his name, yeah,
Headed down the lost highway, haven't seen another soul out here in days, Lord. I've gone so astray. How will I ever get back now, Lord? Ever get back now? When I first headed down this road, I should have known where it would go, Lord. And there were plenty of signs along the way. I paid them no mind, Lord. I paid them no mind. No, I know it's a dead end road I'm headed down. I know it's a dead end road. Gotta turn around. So I'm out here on my own, nothing but me and the open road, Lord. And there's nothing standing in my way. And yet I've never been so chained, Lord. Well, I've never been so chained. No, I know it's a dead end road I'm headed down. No, it's a dead end road, gotta turn around. Well, I'm tired of laying my head down on the cold and unhallowed ground, of listening to the hollow sound of the howling hounds, and they're making their rounds. They're bound to run me down one of these days. Yeah, that lonesome whistle whine, you can hear it moan for 100 miles long. And it recalls all I've left behind. And I hang my head and cry, Lord. Hang my head and cry. Oh, I know. No, it's a dead end road I'm headed down. I know. No, it's a dead end road. Gotta turn around. Gotta turn around. Gotta turn around.
Thank you, Kelly, that was wonderful. Yes. And we'll hear more from her, I'm sure, with that delightful banjo. Yay! I love that. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker. And for those of you who want to know more about our speaker and our musician, there's information on the back of your bulletin that gives you a short bio of them. So now it is time for Reverend Jen to do her message. So thank you, Reverend Jen, in advance.
All right.
Go ahead.
You're gonna say, okay.
Some music accompaniment to my talk this morning. Well, one of the things I just love every time I go and speak somewhere is the way that Spirit like organizes it all before I even get there. So things such as Nikki's prayer this morning on imagination and Kelly's song on the Lost Highway. And I shared with her, as soon as I saw the title of the song, I was like, did you see what I brought with me today? Right? So if we ever doubt Spirit at work in our lives, we just have to look at these moments, look for them, because they happen all the time, and every time I go on a Sunday morning, because we are invoking the awareness of Spirit present every Sunday, right? We know that Spirit is here with us, as us, through us, and has guided all of the activity that has led up to this moment. It's just a magical thing. I love it so much. And I'll share a little bit more about this later. As Nikki said, she has had the opportunity to come and hear me present a couple of times, and what I have presented on is the concept of visual journals, which is what I brought. So a little teaser, and I'll share a little bit about that later. What I wanted to talk to you today about was the idea of the creative I am. Now, how many of you identify, automatically you go, yes, I am creative? Yeah, I find that a lot in our communities. A lot of people already open up to it. Now, how many of you, when I said that, the first thing that popped into your mind was, I am not creative? Yeah. Can I tell you, as an artist, how many times people tell me that they are not creative as soon as I introduce myself as an artist? It's like that we either identify as I am creative or I am not creative. And so my role, my goal in life really is to reawaken the awareness of the creative spirit in everybody. So I'm here today to change your mind about whether or not you are creative. Because my belief is that we are all expressions of the divine. I firmly believe that. And I firmly believe that the divine is the very source of creative energy. All that has come into being is an expression of divine energy, of divine love. And to me, that is creativity in action. So I believe that we are all creative. We just express it in different ways, and we have different ideas of what creativity is. We've created some perhaps false definitions or limited definitions around creativity. So my goal today is that we're going to push through some of those, and we're going to embrace creativity in a new way. Now, growing up, my mother had a very famous line, and it went something like this: "That's just the way I am." Yeah. Did your mom say that to you? Or someone you know? Now, growing up, because she said this so often, you know, we're 20 minutes early for something. Well, that's just the way I am. I gotta make sure we get there, you know. She's like, well, we're cleaning the stove, and I'm like, Mom, you know, I just want breakfast. She's like, almost done, just the way I am. I gotta get this done first. Or she'd say something a little sarcastic to somebody that maybe came across the wrong way, and she's like, well, I don't know why they got offended. That's just the way I am. And so I grew up believing that we are all born just the way we are. So we are either creative or not creative. We're smart or not smart. We're feisty or not feisty, sarcastic or not sarcastic. These are just the way we are. And so I thought that who I am was unchangeable. And how other people responded to life and how they showed up, well, that's unchangeable too. That's just the way they are. And then I found new thoughts.
the Daily Word actually was the first thing that started showing up at my house. My husband's family had long been subscribers of the Daily Word. And so when we got married, now all of a sudden there's this little pamphlet with all these positive thoughts that affirmed that the way that I am is more malleable than I was led to believe as a child. And I started realizing that with thought, I could use creativity in a new way. I changed my health. I changed my interactions with people. My level of patience went way up because of the creative power of thought and tapping into the awareness of the divine in every moment. So now that when things show up that to somebody else that's walking with me that has not been traveling this path for very long, and something shows up in our way that looks like a giant snake, right? I might be more at the point where I'm like, hey, look, it's a snake. If only Kelly were here with her banjo. Maybe I'll just sing her my own little song, right? Whereas somebody else might react immediately with fear to that experience. We have choices. And it's the power of creativity, of the divine mind, that when we tune into that, we can show up in a different way. So our goal today is to talk about how we can move from this limited idea of whether or not we are creative or not creative to a higher elevation of living our lives by using imagination and creativity as spiritual tools that we can show up from the awareness of the I am wherever we are. Now, imagination in itself is like this, I don't know, I call it like a spiritual superpower when we look at it from the perspective of what we can do with it. So if I had a cape, I'd have a big eye on the back. And I could be like the Imaginator, that comes forward to think up new possibilities in the midst of whatever is going on, to look at life a new way. And creativity is not just about fine art. Some of us think, in order to raise my hand and say, yes, I'm creative, it means that we had to have made something that is now hanging on a wall behind glass somewhere, like the Mona Lisa. But that's not what creativity is. Creativity is making anything. Making something that wasn't there before. It could be writing an email. Have you ever written an email? You had to use the power of creativity because there was nothing on that screen when you first opened it up. Whenever you bake something, cook something, get out in the garden. Where'd you go? Yeah, get out in the garden, right? You design where are those things going to go. You nurture it. You bring them forward. So from nothing, something is created. And you played a part in that. So we are all creators. You starting to believe me yet? So with imagination, right, as an artist, I have to use this skill all the time. I go up to a blank canvas, and on that canvas, I can imagine infinite possibilities. And if I were to bring a canvas up here right now and stick it in front of you, we would all imagine different possibilities. Isn't that cool? It's one thing, and yet we all could imagine infinite possibilities times 30, right? It could be anything, which can be overwhelming sometimes, but when we start to narrow it down a little bit, and we can look at life like that blank canvas. No matter what has gone on before, sometimes when I'm creating an artwork, I might get to a certain point, and then I step away from it for a while, and then I come back and I'm like, yeah, I'm not feeling it anymore. And I'll take like a thick white gesso and just paint right over the whole thing, and now it's white again. I can start over. So if you're at a point in your life where you're like, you know what, that's been a mess. The last 10 years, woo! It's like, crazy Jackson Pollock just splattered stuff everywhere, and then somebody could drown over it all, and it's just messy, and I don't know where it's going. You can start over at any time. that's the power of imagination. Where are you going to go from here? Henry David Thoreau said, life is but a canvas to our imagination. Life is but a canvas to our imagination. So whatever has been, we have created. And whatever we would like to see moving forward, we can create. If you have little mistakes, just turn them into happy little trees, whatever, you can paint over it, it's okay. So we are all creating all the time. And we know that our thoughts themselves are powerful. We know that our words are powerful. We know that our actions speak volumes and help to create the life that we are experiencing. So our goal is to move from this unconscious creation that we're doing all the time, whether or not you have thought of it as such. You have been creating the life that you live. Every brushstroke, every day, every thought, every word, every action, over and over, and we're painting these things. So if we've been unconsciously just kind of, dragging the brush behind us, rather than envisioning, using the power of imagination to create what we want to experience, how we want to move into the worlds and move through the worlds, we can shift into the higher consciousness and use that level of imagination and creativity from the I am consciousness. And I think all of the spiritual teachers have demonstrated that what we would call the Christ consciousness, whether or not they would use the same terminology, that's what's happening. It's that level of consciousness that is aware that it is part of something so much bigger than the small self. And in his ministry, Jesus demonstrated using the I am, and we hear the I am sayings in the book of John. I am the bread of life, I am the truth, I am the way, I am the light of the world. If we were to walk around from that awareness of the I am, our lives would be very different. Imagine, close your eyes, visualize it a moment. And say to yourself, I am the light of the world. You can say it out loud, go ahead. I am the light of the world. How does that feel? For some of us, I think I heard the word scary. Yeah. For some of us, it might feel intimidating. For some, it might feel like a false statement right now. For some, it might feel empowering. Let's just breathe in that right now. I am the light of the world. Breathe it in. Feel it in your body. Exhale. Let's say it with conviction one time. I am the light of the world. Open your eyes. If we lived every moment from this awareness of the light that we are, we live in light, in love, in harmony with all that is. Turn to your neighbor. Tell your neighbor, you are the light of the world. And if your neighbor didn't hear you, turn to one more person and say, you are the light of the world.
You are the light of the world. You really are.
He told me to let it down. I missed that talk. It's kind of, I still got When we live from the awareness of the light that we are, we see others as that light. It breaks down barriers between us and our neighbor, between us and our families, between us and our co-workers, our boss, between us and everybody that we see on the news. When we can say, I am the light of the world, you are the light of the world, to everyone in every situation that we encounter, we can radically create change in this world. And that change begins with us, and it begins with how we show up. If we want to see more love, we have to be more love. If we want to see more light, we have to be the light. This is how we create our lives. Now, how many of you have ever had an experience of spiritual bliss? You just kind of pieced out meditation. Just yeah. How many of you can imagine that space right now? Just picture it. Picture that moment. Picture where you are right now. Picture that light filling you. And I want to tell you that I have not yet filed my taxes, and I still need to do all the paperwork that involves getting that done. And I want to tell you that I heard something horrible on the news this morning that you all should know about. And I want to tell you that my son just had the flu. And I want to tell you that life happens to us. How many of you still feel great? Yeah. Did you feel it come down a little bit? Yeah, because I got human for a minute. And that's the bliss that we get to live in. That knowing, that awareness, I am greater than this body. I am greater than my experiences. I am the divine I am. And I am human. And my human self has to move through every day, facing new experiences. Some things that I might label as challenges, dis-ease, discomfort. So the question becomes, how do I live a human life in balance with my spiritual I am? And that's why we come here. That's why we have spiritual communities. To help us remember the truth of who we are, so that our neighbors can tell us, you are the light of the world, when everything in our human experience seems to be going to chaos. Because the more that we can lift ourselves into that awareness, into that knowing of the truth of who we are, we can come back faster. Now for me, it is taxes. It is finances. It is dealing with parenthood some days. Those are the things that bring me from my to, you know. And we all have those. You know what yours are. Right? Is it health? Relationships? Career? Brother-in-law? You know? I mean, there's some things at the news. You know, that when we hear these things, even when their names come up, I said brother-in-law, and somebody in this room went, oh yeah, it's him, right? I don't know you, but I know you felt it, right? You know what it is for you. And if we know our triggers, it's knowing our own shadow, knowing who we are in totality. When we know our triggers, we can pray ourselves up ahead of time. I had a minister once tell me this clever little device that she uses. She calls it her prayometer, you know, like your speedometer on the car. So she says, you know, before I enter a challenging situation, I get prayed up. So you imagine your prayometer going up before you enter it. So if you know it's your brother-in-law and you guys are getting together for Thanksgiving, pray up, you know. And then if you encounter him and it's like, ooh, you know, you feel it dropping. Excuse me, I just need to use the restroom for a moment. And you just go into the bathroom and I am the light of the world. He is the light of the world, you know? Even if you don't believe it, just pray up. Create the change that you need to create so that you can be the change. So I have a tool that I use that I want to share with you. Bringing it back to the beginning here. And that tool is my creative journal, my visual journal. And this is what I use to transform thoughts from and lift them up, right? So when I notice that I'm going down, and sometimes when I'm up, I art it out. But what I do is I use my journal, and I just use mixed media in it. So sometimes it's drawing, sometimes it's collage. Sometimes what I will do, is that flip for something? so this one here is an example. You can see the scribbles in the background, yes? So if I'm having a day, where something's happening that maybe I'm just like, I can open my journal and I can acknowledge what energy am I feeling, and I can let that transfer onto the page. So it might be, I'm scribbling, but as I'm scribbling, I'm going, whew, there's this energy that I'm feeling today, feeling a little tight, just scribbling, and I'm noticing. Because sometimes what we tend to do is when we feel that tightness, when we feel something that makes us feel human, in a less than pleasant way, we tend to push it back here, stick it in the back pocket, I'll deal with that later, and we never do. But we can't transform things that we aren't willing to look at. I'm going to repeat that. We can't transform things that we're not willing to look at. So if we are falsely just saying, well, I am that I am and nothing ever bothers me. You know, if you have transcended already, thank you, and please model it for the rest of us. But for those of us that have yet to transcend fully, we need some tools to help us. And part of that is acknowledgement. Now, I like to think of fear sometimes as like a 2-year-old. If you have ever been around a 2-year-old that has something that they need to tell you, they are not going to stop until you listen to them. Have you all had this experience? Mommy, Nana, Mommy, Papa, Mommy, Mommy, Mommy. And we just sit there, and until you say, yes, dear, they're going to keep tugging at you. And it's the same with our fear. When we just sit there and think that our fear is going to go away without us acknowledging it, we're wrong. It's just going to sit there and it's going to drive in the back seat with us wherever we go, calling out our name until we finally acknowledge it and just say, hi, what's going on for you? Acknowledge it. And most of the time it's going to tell you something, just like that 2-year-old, you know, hey, there's a monster under my bed. I just need you to know. I'm a little freaked out. There's something under there. I heard a sound. And the moment you say to them, I hear you. I acknowledge that you heard something that made you scared. Dear fear, thank you for telling me what's going on for you. You can then transform it. Because most likely there's not really a monster there. And you can take your fear by the hand, you can walk it into the bedroom, you can look underneath the bed, shine a flashlight in there, shine the light on it, whatever it is, and say it's not so bad as you think it is because I have the light. And so the moment we acknowledge whatever it is that's bubbling up inside of us, causing that anxiety, that fear, that discomfort, that humanness that we don't like to feel sometimes, if we have a safe place that we can start scribbling, start feeling it, just splatter it on a page. Yeah, this is one. I didn't like that page for the longest time because it was red. Red was an angry color. I didn't want to look at it. So we acknowledge first, acknowledge the fear. And then the second thing is to affirm the truth, to tell the light, speak the light to the fear. Whatever it is, we go back to, I am the light of the world. We go back to the creative I am. And from that awareness, the affirmation of who we are, then we can move forward and do something with it. We can create with it. So we acknowledge, we affirm, and then we take action. I notice my fear. I breathe into the light, and then I create, take action from the light rather than from the fear. And so what has happened for me in my journal experiences is I can take something and I can scribble it out, I can paint it out, I can do whatever, and in that, I have released the fear. And then I breathe in, I meditate for a moment, and I let the truth speak through me, and I'll write the truth statement over the top of the page. So what shows up on the top is my affirmation. And then I can move back out into the world. And sometimes these take me 20 minutes, sometimes I sit down for 2 hours. But it's a creative tool that I have come to use that can be a transformative process. Now, you don't all need to go out and get a journal, although it's fun, right? He's done them with me a couple of times. But I invite you to think, what could my creative tool be to help create the change that I want to see in my life? What can my creative tool be? And it could just be prayer and meditation, our simplest prescription in new thought, right? To take whatever the fear is, but to acknowledge it first, and then deny it power over us by affirming the truth of who we are. I am the light of the world. I am a creative expression of the divine. And we breathe it until we feel it, and then we move forward. Now, whenever I paint, I started with my blank canvas, my infinite possibilities, I've narrowed it down, I know what I'm going to create, and at that point, there's something that needs to happen. And it's that final action step, because so often we go, well, I prayed, didn't happen. You know, the action step needs to happen. If I just imagine a new painting on my canvas and I sit back and wait for it to show up, it's probably not going to happen. I have to pick up the brush, and then I have to apply paint, and sometimes it's a 1-session thing, sometimes it's a 50-session thing. So we have to be willing to show up to use the tools over and over and over again. Repeating the process. Reminding ourselves always, I am a creative expression of the divine. I am. That's who I am. That's just the way I am. So it is, and so you are. And now we're going to move into a time of meditation. So I invite you to get comfortable in your seat. You've been sitting for a little while. You might want to roll your shoulders, roll your neck, shift your hips. Feel the physical body for a moment. Take care of its needs. And then allow yourself to sink into your chair, to feel your feet on the floor, to close your outer eyes if it feels comfortable to you. Let's just take in a deep breath here, breathing in and sigh it out. Breathing in and sigh it out. And we let our breath take on its natural rhythm. We affirm our body's needs are met in this present moment. And we instead allow the breath to become a vehicle that transports our mind deeper into the present moment. Breathing in, I breathe in peace. Exhaling, I exhale light. Breathing in, I breathe in love. Exhale, I exhale harmony. Breathing in, I breathe in joy. Exhaling, I smile. We allow the breath to gently continue at its own pattern. As we bring our own awareness within our heart center, and we imagine here at the center of our being a spark of light, a flicker of a candle, This is the Christ light within us all. As we turn within the silence, I invite you to focus on this light. Perhaps watch it grow, or simply draw your attention to the way that it flickers and flutters, bringing warmth inside you. As we breathe in now, deeper into the awareness of the Christ light, the creative light, the I am that is the center of our being. We breathe in, we witness in the silence. In the silence. I am the light of the world. I am the light of the world. And with this light, I open my eyes to the truth of my being, to the truth of my neighbors. And I create the most magnificent life upon the canvas before me. Breathing in and exhaling. And we open our eyes to the present moment, seeing now fully the truth of the light of who we are. And so it is. And so it is.
Thank you, Reverend Jen, that was marvelous. I enjoyed that very much. It's now time for our offering. Please take a silent moment to prepare your offertory gifts, and then we'll say our prayer and pass the baskets. And once we're doing that, Kelly is going to grace us with another song. Everybody ready? Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I am joy-filled and grateful.
Well, that was lovely. That was really very much spoke to me. And this next song is really about finding the light when it's not necessarily easy to find, when you have to move some of the clouds out of the way to find it. And I wrote it on a morning when, as kind of as a pep talk to myself on a morning when I was having a really hard time getting out of bed. And it's called Sunshine Long Overdue.
Oh no, don't turn your face away from the hattered light of day. Sun rose and so must you. Gone the shadows of the night put out the artificial lights that in his absence have to do. So long was the night, but it passed by you, and the sunshine, oh, it's a long overdue. Oh, tell me, what's the thought that plagues your mind? Is it that you've run out of time? Is it that you're no good? Oh, believe me, friend, I understand. You're tethered to the second hand. You feel its every move. So much awaits you, and the sunshine, oh, it's long overdue. Oh, friend, let me lighten up your load. Let me walk you down that road, show you a world so sweet. You've had your eyes trained on the sky, been tracking that storm cloud for miles. You've missed the flowers at your feet. So much beauty surrounds you, and the sunshine, oh, it's long overdue.
Thank you, Kelly. And banjo is something I've always wanted to learn how to play, so it's very personal to me to hear you play it. Needless to say, I haven't gotten there. Okay, are there any concerns that anybody'd like to share for this week? Oh my, we got a group going. Teddy.
My friend Jane Bromberg is having shoulder surgery on Monday. She fell when she was in Europe, broke the top off of her shoulder, and they're just now going to repair it Monday. So pray for her and that it's a good outcome. Thank you.
Okay. Barbara, I saw your hand up.
Okay, so I just get update on Maria. Her surgery was really good. She's going to be in intensive care for a couple of days. She would like some visitors after she's out of intensive care, but you know, we have to remember she had open heart surgery, so be healthy, you know, short visit, right? And then she's going to move to a rehab center, and then when I know exactly where she's going, I'll let you know on that. And then I'd like to say a prayer for Gwen. I just found out her sister died a while ago, and they're having a memorial service for her, but she's the one that thinks of all of us and sends us cards and prayers and stuff like that. So I'd just like to pray for Gwen on her journey.
Okay. Nikki, did you have anything?
I do. For those of you who may or may not be connected to people in Nebraska, it's really tragic up there for a lot of folks. So just so that you know, it's not in the news, I don't know why, not so much here, but there are towns that have been wiped away, just gone, little towns. And there are farmers whose livelihood depended on the crops and the cattle. Farmers are losing 3,000-4,000 head apiece. I mean, this is just huge. Farmers are losing their lives trying to go out and rescue their cattle. So all of this is in my home area, and it's just really, it's really devastating to the people there. Many of them have no boots to pull their bootstraps on, you know, so they're filing bankruptcy already because there's nothing, they have no resources left. And this is family farms that are just wiped away. So I would really ask for prayers for a lot of those people. Some of them are friends and family of all of us, so please pray for those folks. I'm also, if I might just take another second, trying to coordinate with the Red Cross so that I and whoever else would like to join me can go up and do some work, and I don't know what that would look like. I don't know if it's premature, but if you have any interest at all in glomming on with me and going up to the Red Cross to do some work. It might be handing out food, it might be clothing, I don't know what it would be. It might even be rehab. In New Orleans, we put on hazmat suits and pulled off paneling. I don't know what we'd be doing. But if you're interested in participating in any kind of relief effort, let me know.
So, there are 501c organizations up there in Nebraska that are helping these people?
You know what, we're not hearing much about it.
But I mean,
I imagine yes.
It
and-
could be research, because that's, I mean, just looking
Yeah.
at Patrick's survey, I mean, that's like an immediate thing right here,
Yes, I was
right
thinking
now.
that too,
But
yeah.
it does need to be a 501c, right?
Okay.
That's part of the.
Well,
I guess
just
Patrick can know
technically,
that.
we're a 501c, so if it's money that we collect weekly and we're tracking through our accounting system, we need to stay within those regulations. Now,
Oh,
we can do a special offering or collection anytime and just send that money directly, because that doesn't really go through the books. But as long as it comes from your weekly offerings and we track it and log it, then we need to.
We can spend our time any way we want.
Sure, and time, time and personal money, yes.
I have a question about that, Patrick. I noticed it said local organizations.
Well,
that extended
we
fund.
just thought, as soon as I get my committee together, we may broaden our thinking, but I just thought, to get started, we were kind of focused locally, since we're not very big and we don't have, so given to United Way, well, a lot of people give United Way, but maybe nobody gives to the little, immigrant service church in a corner type of thing. So I thought, to begin with, we start, but join the committee and broaden our thinking too down the road.
Well, and the giving that we do may be to a local organization, but their outreach may extend beyond our locality. So like Harvesters, they're local, but they distribute food in a 6-state area. So,
That's true.
they have a much broader reach. The Franciscan mission that we go to help out, they're sending stuff to Africa and Central America and so forth. So these are local charities, but their reach is farther than ours. So the word local means we're trying to benefit those mission efforts that are here that can extend even further. If I could tag on to what Mickey's talking about in regard to Nebraska's tragedy. I was reading in the news yesterday, and I don't know why we don't hear more about this on the local or national media, but the facilities in McAllen, Texas is just being overran by people coming across the border and claiming immediate asylum. These are not people who are trying to hide their presence in the United States and become permanent residents here. These are people who are fleeing for their lives and are asking for immediate consideration of amnesty. And the numbers have just become amazingly large. Last year they were averaging about 500 a day. This year it's well into the multi-thousands a day. And all the charities down there, the governmental programs down there, they're just getting washed away with the flood of immigrants coming across the border. And I don't know what the answer to that is, but it needs our loving compassion and our divine power, however we can show up to address that.
Okay, any more community concerns? Ida?
With all these huge concerns, I have asked your prayers for a person from Lake Nokomis who's very active there, a young girl named, well, she's an adult, named Frankie. Just think about that name, Frankie, and when you think about that name, just see the light, a healing light, because she's facing, in the near future, some very serious situations. So remember Frankie in your prayers. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, let's go ahead and turn to our prayer. Centering our hearts and minds in prayer, we let go of any thoughts of worry or challenge and simply rest in the stillness. We know that our source of strength and peace comes from God alone. We give thanks for divine order and trust that we are all held in the power of grace. Amen. If you'd like private prayer, please remember that Dennis and Susan Breed are available as chaplains. And next Sunday, we welcome Carrie Kenyon as our speaker and Graham Cruikshank as our musician. Graham has a traveling entourage with him, so be sure to get here early so you can get a seat. Once again, I'd like to thank Rev Jen Hutchins for her song. We get a closing song with that lovely banjo again, and then Mickey will come pray us out.
This last one, so I'm from West Tennessee, from Memphis, but I lived for a year in the Smoky Mountains of East Tennessee, and I traveled around, was trying to run away from my creative self for many years after college, and was trying to do everything else and fit into a whole bunch of different molds, and I was moving every year and trying a different career path, and was really very unhappy. And this was the only song that snuck out during that chapter of my life, because I was really trying to push music away. And this one snuck out, and I was living in this little kit log cabin home. It was beautiful. It was front porch and gravel road, and then just a field full of cows in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains. But you could see the light through the chinks in the logs, and it was quite a little chapter. But this song kind of warmed me back up to writing, and happened against my will, and I'm grateful for it. It's called Winter in the Mountains.
Says, behold thyself. Where are you going? What are you running from? Do you know yourself? Nothing in the whole wide world's worth forgetting who you are. If you go too far, I'll come and find you. Now to remind you who you are. And I know I'm not at home anymore. I'm not at home, not at home, not at home.
just before you pray out, I just wanted to mention that KellyCon has a album coming out.
Oh, I do.
You seem
Actually, I have
surprised,
some
Kelly.
I have some hard copies with me, but it'll be digitally, globally released in May.
In May, and so we'll put a link on our, I'll have Terry put a link out for us that we, in our weekly email that you can connect to that link.
Thank you for that.
But you have some to sell today?
I do if you're interested, sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, I should have told you. Yes, you're welcome to do that.
Awesome, thank you.
How cool is that? And we heard her here first. Talk about being creative. Look what we birthed. All right, so the closing prayer comes yet again from our daily word, and it is imagination, and it's from March 17th. I imagine new and positive possibilities for my life. My heart-centered belief in my oneness with the divine power of creation ensures that my life will grow and expand in beautiful ways. And so it is.